Hello, everybody, and welcome to ABM Answered, the quick-fire demand generation and ABM video series, or at least that's what we aim for. Today, I'm excited to be joined by Shalev Sabag, who is the ABM Manager at Atera, and I'm extremely excited for this episode because me and Shalev met through Bordy, which I'm sure a lot of you folks have heard of before, and I would argue is actually a relevant connection, Shalev. So that is kind of proof that AI can work. But yeah, Shalev, maybe you could give a bit of background about yourself, how you ended up in ABM, and obviously, you're a man that wears many hats. So yeah, give a bit of background about your experience.
Sure, and thank you for the introduction. Yeah, Bordy is definitely an experience, and the connection is definitely valid. Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here. So, as you mentioned, Shalev, I'm 28. I'm based out of Tel Aviv. I'm the ABM manager for a company called Atera. Atera is an all-in-one IT management platform that uses agentic AI to empower enterprise IT teams. So basically, in my work, I'm founding our ABM motion or go-to-market motion within Atera, and Atera has kind of this PLG and SLG motion. So when I joined a year and a half ago, our SLG was just in the beginning, and yeah, we took it to an ABM motion as well as traditional demand gen and PLG and ABM. So it's kind of all in one.
For sure, and this is also some really interesting stuff because I think a lot of companies are trying to kind of transition from PLG to SLG, or not even transition, but just kind of incorporate both into their go-to-market motion. But that was awesome. So Shalev, just to run you through the rules and the viewers, Shalev in this case will be given a set of questions to respond to all about account-based marketing and demand gen. The challenges have come from or been based originally on the data we collected at Mixed Reality Rooms, where 1,000 marketers have gone through and given us details on what their biggest headaches were. But in more recent episodes, we've started to include previous guest questions as well. So, Shalev, are you ready for question one?
Let's go. Give it to me.
Cool. Let's go indeed. So question one came in from previous guest Sarab Sankey at IGT Solutions. And he asked, what is the right time for an organization to adopt an ABM approach, in your opinion?
It's a good question. And I think obviously this varies a lot from company to company, right? Based on your ICP, based on your TAM. And I also feel like there's almost this consensus that ABM is reserved for like high ACV deals, six-figure deals, enterprise accounts. But for me, I think ABM is a bit different, right? So I think about it more as a framework, right? So a framework for us marketers to focus more on our winning channels, focus more on our messaging points and our selling points, but most importantly, focus on our prospects and our customers, right? So really understanding how our prospects are buying, how are they buying technologies, how are their department and companies are built, and how can we tap into that? So for me, I think the answer is split into two. When you should incorporate those ABM methodologies is straight from the get-go, right? You should know your ideal customer profile from the start, and you should know how to sell into those organizations from the get-go. I mean, technically, when you should start incorporating the traditional ABM approaches is when your journeys start to become a little bit more complex, right? So when you have a ton of touch points, when you need to have multiple meetings to drive those opportunities down the line, when you have several stakeholders in those opportunities, I think that's where ABM can kind of push you and improve you.
Firstly, it just makes so much sense, right? Who would have thought personalized marketing, the way forward, could perform better? But I guess I try and keep the following questions to a minimum, just because we got a lot to get through. But what was kind of like the deciding factor at Atera from going from PLG to SLG? Was it what you just mentioned, where like the touch points were getting a bit more complex, longer? Did the product itself change? Was it typically focused? Had you transitioned to going after more enterprise deals now?
Yeah,
I don't know if you're allowed to speak about any of that.
It's a mix of all, basically. I think it's almost never just a singular thing, right?
Yeah.
And for us, it's not that we moved from PLG to SLG. but our PLG is still super strong. But we wanted to incorporate those SLG and grow our SLG business so much more. And yeah, our customer journey is all over the place, as I'm sure every marketer would argue. But yeah,
Yeah.
understanding how our prospects buy just made more sense in an ABM form.
Oh, for sure. So that's a good point. So, like, it's always iterating. More new facts, new research comes up all the time. So it's important to kind of be adaptable. So, question 2 that came in was from Katie O'Neill at Noetic. She asked, "What is a simple way to explain to those caveman salespeople? I shouldn't say that, just sales. All the great work marketing has done without overcomplicating it."
Yeah, that's also a great question. And I think where a lot of marketers sort of get it wrong is they look at sales as almost customers of marketing, right? So it's marketing's job to give sales what they need, the product that they need, which is leads, which is intent, which is whatever, and then they have sales need to go and perform on top of that, and they need to do their job and create pipeline and do their amazing stuff. For me, I look at it differently. I see sales as full on collaborators. So ABM for me is a go to market motion. It's not just a marketing motion, right? So it's some people call it ABX, right? So marketing, sales, and then customer success. So I see sales as full on collaborators, and I bring them to all the meetings from day one, and we build the motion entirely together. And then it's not about just them seeing the amazing job I do. It's about all of us understanding the great job that we do together.
Mhm. I'm Team ABX for the record, but ABX Answered didn't flow as
Same.
nicely as ABM. So on that then, so just quickly again, you'll bring them into the meeting. I totally agree with that. Like every touch point along the way. And will you kind of just like visually show them, here are like 5 options we've got for content. What do you think is going to resonate better? Like how do you kind of pitch or propose your ideas to them? Or do you normally, are they in the infancy, or do you kind of like put together like sample reports or sample kind of content, ebooks? I don't know if you can share any light around that.
Yeah, it's on that level, but it also goes deeper than that, right? So it's understanding. We spoke earlier about understanding our prospects. Who knows our
Mm-hmm.
prospects better than the people that talk with them almost all day, right? So they have the best feedback from our prospects, and they give it to us marketing, and then we work together to kind of put it into this big ABM machine that generate content and generates and then everything that's around it. So again, a work in progress together.
Yeah, they just look at you and think, "Oh, here's the magic curtain behind here," or like churning out content left, right, and center.
Telling you, it's exactly
Um,
like this.
Question 4, Shalev, is from Janelle Amos at Elevate Growth. She asked, "What are the top 3 things you would prioritize today if you were building a marketing strategy from scratch?"
That's an amazing question, and listing those things is very easy. Executing them is very not easy. So I think the first one, and it might be a cliche, but again, it's alignment, right? So it's getting everyone on the same page, right, and the same to the same place. Going towards ABM will, without a doubt, require changes, and aligning people before you do this process about what the changes are going to be. Where do we need to do stuff differently, right? Do we need to measure things differently? Do we need to change the way we speak with our prospects? Do we need to, I don't know, maybe talk to finance differently, talk to our CEO differently in the way that we present data? So aligning those stuff is very, very crucial. And that's the first thing. The second thing is a bit more technical, and it's about gathering the data. So in ABM, you're going to get so much data, right? Whether it's enrichment data and contacts and accounts and offline and online and product usage and intent data and everything that's in between. You have to make sure that you have the right system, the CRM or your data management platform, whatever, that can aggregate everything into one place in a way that kind of makes sense, right? So that you can actually activate this data and orchestrate it in a meaningful way and not just have a pile of rubbish.
Mm-hmm.
And then the final thing And I keep circling back to this is again knowing our prospects or our target audience. So really, really understanding them more than just what is their pain points, right? So I would argue that you should actually know what they like to do outside of work, right? What are their hobbies? So if I'm selling specifically now in Atera to IT or field leaders, they don't just do IT. They do other stuff. They have lives. They have hobbies. I need to be able to understand how does the IT person look like? What do they do on their day to day? And when you start getting into those levels and really understanding how they buy and how they live, basically, that's where ABM really takes into effect. And for me, the way I look at it is I'm in the business of creating high end marketing or buying experiences. I want to be the Louis Vuitton of buying experiences. And that's the only way for me to know that, right? To really get into that is to know all this thing, to align everyone on what we're doing, to get all the data in what place and kind of store it in a meaningful way and activate it in a correct way.
That is a great quote. You should definitely have that in your LinkedIn bio as well. But like to your point, I love the kind of almost chronological order that you've had that as well. Like, there's no point picking your target accounts before you've got alignment with sales. Also, one thing that you mentioned there about understanding what they do outside of work, I've always found that so difficult to do when you're
Definitely.
just like going down like a Reddit rabbit hole or something. But as soon as you talk to sales who have these, like, they make these casual small talk conversations, it all becomes so much easier. Wow, you're smashing these off the park. Right, question 5. Here's a good one. I love this one. So this came in from Drew Smith at Attributor, and he asked, what is the best way to do ABM without buying expensive tools like Sixth Sense and Demandbase?
Yeah,
Discuss.
those get pricey, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I think for us as B2B marketers, look, if you can spare a few $100 a month, right? So those platforms, ABM, Six Sense, the demand base of the world, they would run you thousands of dollars a month. If you can spare just a few $100 a month, I think the first tool that I would buy is website visits de-anonymization tool. The amount of companies that would go into your websites just to come back 6 months later to submit a organic demo is insane. And
Interesting.
with minimal effort, you uncover so much data that's it can't get any more relevant than this, right? They're on your website. They know you. So that's the first thing that I would do. If you have literally zero, just start with the first party data that you have. Do ABM for existing customers. Look at how they use the product. Look at how they talk to your customer success. Look at their email marketing response. Just look at the stuff that you already have, and that's your data, and really dig into it and try to map those patterns and really understand what do they mean. What is the data telling me? It's more than just random numbers.
Dude, I am gonna still. I know I'm gonna ask you if you got a question for the next guest, but like, what's the first tool you would buy? Is also a great question. Are we talking about like R B2B, as in like the person level identification? Because I weirdly
It doesn't
installed
even have
that
to be
today on my
person level.
website,
It can be account
like
level, right?
Clearbit.
So if you have
Yeah.
a lot of tools that would just give you the name of the account, the location that they visited from, and the pages that have been on your website. And this is invaluable. Think about it. It's an insane amount of data.
It also, so I used Clearbit for that, and it gets me so excited because you're like, oh, Dell just viewed my website, and like that's nuts because that could potentially be worth hundreds of thousands or millions.
Yeah, I
Right.
will say
This.
that
Sorry.
in a world that we live in today, where it's mostly mobile heavy, it gets trickier as time goes because mobile traffic is a little bit harder to identify. But we're still in a time that we have a lot of desktop traffic and also some decent identification abilities on mobile.
See, that is another interesting point. So they always say like LinkedIn video reels, for example, like that's the thing at the moment, and like that's how you're going to get the more reach. And do you know what? They might be right, but LinkedIn traffic is still something like 70% desktop, And I think that often gets kind of like overlooked, which blew my mind. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure it is because I looked into that kind of video
I don't
feature.
know. I'll have to look on my campaigns. I think it's more likely like 95% mobile, but I wish it was 70% desktop.
Are you talking about ad campaigns or just like
Yeah, yeah.
users of
Are you
LinkedIn?
talking about like organic?
Oh, I was just talking about like how the majority of LinkedIn use their. I don't know. I looked it up and it said 70% still use it on
It
their
might be.
desktop.
It might be. It might be.
Hey, I've got a knack for being wrong all the time. But hashtag fake news. Anyway,
Yeah.
question 6 came in from Katia Stella, and she asked, "What is your practical advice to get leadership buy-in into your ABM campaigns?" And it's a good question because I had this. Yeah, I'll leave it there. I won't give you some context. I'll just how would you take that one?
Yeah. So again, I think it depends. If the motivation to why we're going towards ABM is coming from management, right? Then you need to understand why. Because a lot of time, what would happen is your CMO or your VP marketing, whatever, they would hear this kind of ABM as a trend, almost as a catchphrase. And they would tell you, like, okay, look into it and let's see what we can do with it. And then you would just launch a LinkedIn campaign targeting an account list, and then you would call it ABM and you would say, I did ABM. But that's not the case, right? So you
Yeah.
need to understand why they're coming to you with this need. For me, it's about effectiveness, right? So faster deals, higher ACV, higher close rates. If you're going after existing customers, so obviously net retention rate is higher and lower churn. So you have to align on those metrics with management. And something that's oftentimes overlooked, but is so important, is the amount of time it takes for ABM to really get into effect. So you need to let your management know that it will take a good few months until you would see maybe not even dollars, but just pipeline or any engagement. So it would take time. But if it's coming from someone from below, then again, I would start smaller with smaller ABM initiatives one at a time. So maybe just personalize something very small in your entire growth operations. That's oftentimes a smaller pill to swallow for management, and then you can start small, preferably without a ton of budget. And once you prove you have some success, you can scale off of that.
Yeah, I feel that's quite a nice question from the previous one. Yeah, investing all in Demandbase and 6 cents out of the gate can be pretty scary. It almost acts as like a deterrent rather than like, hey, encouraging people to get into ABM. But that's another conversation for another day. Right,
Mm-hmm.
Shalev, one more question, and it's my favorite question that's ever been asked from Emily York Goldney. She asked, if the sky was the limit in terms of budget, what would be your best in class recommendation for a campaign to drive account engagement? And what I always say is feel free to be as weird, unconventional, and like abstract thinking as possible if you want to be.
I might disappoint you. Like, I don't think those two correlate like entirely. So big ad spends, it's nice, or big spend or a lot of budget is nice, but I don't think it's entirely necessary for an effective, well-rounded, well-orchestrated campaign. I think
Mm-hmm.
you can do amazing ABM work that's super hyper personalized with small budgets. Again, it goes back to truly understanding your customers. But if I have to give an answer, that I think it's every ABMer dream to kind of formulate this online, offline, in sync campaign. Again, understanding my customers, understanding how they buy, understanding what they do outside of work, and how can I tap into this and maybe be at just saying something wild in an F1 Formula One race, or at Wimbledon, or something that's you wouldn't expect to see an IT technology in, and then being there, right, and doing something that will catch them off guard, and combining it, I don't know, geo-fenced, location-based online campaign, and kind of
Dude,
mixing
that would
them
be
together.
wicked. Yeah, but so it also starts like what you were saying earlier with like your research almost at like if it's true one-to-one ABM, like at a
Mhm.
personal level, what are they doing outside of work and whacking some ads up there.
Yeah.
Also, um, random side note: that one of our next guests is Mike English, and he is head of commercial. So it's a bit of a different type of guest of billboards across London. So I'm gonna ask him all sorts of random questions to do with kind of advertising there, because I don't fully know how it works, but there must be some form of targeting. But thank you so much, Shalev. So the last question I have is: do you have a question for our next guest?
I do. I do. I want to hear about ABM pitfalls, right? So, what are the common pitfalls in ABM when you're just starting out? How can you, plan ahead towards them, and how can you avoid them before they happen?
That's a solid question. I feel like I could write an encyclopedia of knowledge on that topic, but
Yeah.
I'm sure someone has much more better field knowledge than me. I will ask that. Shalev, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Awesome.